Welcome to the McGraw-Hill Education Webinar Series. I'm Angie Eckerly with McGraw-Hill Education, and I will be the webinar moderator for today's session, Making the Most of Blended Learning with Open Court Reading. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being presented in listen-only mode, which means you will be able to hear the presenter, but she will not be able to hear you. However, that doesn't mean you cannot participate. We, of course, want to hear any questions you have, so just type those in the question panel on your toolbar. Joining us today is Carol Christensen. For the past 20 years, Carol has been a curriculum specialist with McGraw-Hill Education. She's worked with administrators and teachers to further literacy instruction. She's been involved in many large open court reading implementations throughout the country. Now I'd like to turn the session over to Carol. Welcome, Carol.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our session on blended learning. Blended learning seems to be one of the buzzwords that we have today, or that we're hearing today in the education world, and it means different things to different people. So hopefully you'll be able to learn by the end of this session how to use blended learning by combining the best teaching methods and the technology provided by Open Court Reading to ensure the best outcome for your students. The session goals for today are to, number one, define blended learning just in general terms. Like I said before, there are many definitions of blended learning, and we're going to come and talk about just the most general terms. Number two, we're going to explore ways to effectively utilize the Open Court Reading technology to enhance your teaching. Which pieces will work best when you're in front of the class? Which pieces do we may need to think about and make decisions on? And finally, identify ways students can utilize technology at school and at home. So before we begin, I'd like to have you take a few minutes and think about what you know about blended learning. Maybe you've never heard this before, or maybe you know a lot about it and are actually doing this within your school. I'd like to know a little bit more about all of you. So I have a polling question for you. How familiar are you with the idea of blended learning? Very? Somewhat? I've heard of it, or I've never heard of it. Okay, it looks like we have some knowledge of blended learning, and we've heard of it, so that's a great start. So let's start with our very first goal, which was coming up with a definition for blended learning. Again, there are many definitions out there, and we're going to stick with what is most general. Basically, blended learning mixes technology and face-to-face instruction. So it combines the classroom learning with direct teaching from the teacher with online digital media. The student portion of this is some element of control for the students. They control the time they use the technology, the place they use the technology, and the pace of technology. So basically there are three ideas to think about. Number one, the teacher-led learning. Number two, student online learning that can occur within the classroom or within a computer lab. And finally, the online at home. What are students doing on the computer with their time at home? And there are lots of opportunities for at-home learning with Open Court Reading technology. So to learn a little bit more about this, let's go live and actually take a look at the site, and I'll explain a few things that will be really beneficial to make the most out of using the technology for you and your students. Okay, So we're going to start first with the open court reading technology for the teacher. When you log in and sign in to your ConnectEd account and open up the technology, you'll see your very first page screenshot of open court reading. If you've set your calendar, you'll see your unit, lesson, and day will pop up at the present. The hamburger menu on the left is where we can navigate through some of these pieces. Let's take a look at some instructional pieces that we have that will really support student learning. One of them, as we page through and we look at all of our thumbnails, the first one that I want to show and highlight is the introduction of the sound spelling card. Now, when you open up the thumbnail, we have the resource right here that we can open up. Using this within the classroom will really help solidify that sound, symbol, action relationship that we want our students to internalize and then be able to use the cards that are posted as a reference tool throughout the day. The sound spelling cards come to life when you play the little song that is recorded.
Lonnie is amusing. She plays a ukulele and sings continually. You. Long You has a sense of humor. She juggles cucumbers and continues to sing. You. Long You has many regular shows. Her musical performances are most unusual. Help Long You sing her unique song. You.
For those of you that have used the open court reading program in the past, we never had a poem for the long vowel cards, and now we do to help solidify those sounds. Off to the right, you'll see the spellings that are highlighted. You can click to the sounds and spellings to review each one individually, or show as they're shown on the card. There's also a small box up in the right-hand corner that will show an example of someone producing that sound, and that will help with students that need extra support in forming some of the sounds. Another piece that we have that can be used well during instructional time is the blending resource. When you open up that thumbnail, you'll see all of the routines for all the blending formats, and you'll see the blending words. Now, I want to talk about this one for just a minute if you're teaching first grade. When you're teaching first grade, there are several scaffolded routines. One of them is sound by sound blending. And when you write the individual sounds as the students say them, it is the most instructional support. That is the first way you want to blend. The next way is taking away some of the scaffold by the teacher, which is whole word blending, where the whole word is written and students will say the sounds. Finally, that moves on to just reading the words. So now we have a blending board. When you open it up, it will show up in a very small piece. What you need to do if you're using this in your classroom is go to your computer setting that will zoom in on the screen. And depending on the computer that you have, either 200 or zooming to 250% will make the words visible for all students. Now on my computer, once I open a piece and zoom it out to 200%, every time I open a blending board, it will automatically go to 200%. So check to make sure this is the case when you're using this. Next, once we have it viewable to the students, we want to think about, when do I use this board? When can I use it? If my students are at the sound by sound blending stage, which means that I have to write individual sounds as students say them and then blend them, it might not be appropriate to use the blending board at that time. Make sure that a majority of your class can read the words without any trouble to use the blending boards. Now, there are some things that you can do if you need support. If the students, you think you can read them, but come across a word that might be a little tricky, there are some tips that you could use. First of all, you'll want to get a pointer so that you can point to the individual sounds, have the students say the sounds, and then blend the word. There's another idea that you could use that I've seen in a classroom actually. A teacher took a ruler and on the very end of it taped a big square piece of black construction paper. And she used that to cover up some of the syllables as they were blending the sounds. So for example, in the word fewer, the teacher simply covered up the syllable at the end and students were able to read syllable by syllable and then blend the word. And that would be very helpful. It's easier to use a long pointer with some sort of covering than your hands so that you won't be blocking the screen for your students. There are other pieces here that are very good to show as well that you could use it. One of them is with the guided practice page. If you open up that page, you can present it to your students. And I don't know if you've been on lately, but there is a program that opens up in a document reader. Now, for this part, you can simply use your smartboard to activate the writing portion, and you can write right on this page. Or, if you want, you can use the tools that are provided here. One of them is the typing. If I click on T, I can actually type. Now, it looks very small right now, but I'm going to type a word. I'll put my name. And when I click on the plus sign, it zooms the text. And then I can use my box to move it wherever I'd like. Now, once I've zoomed it out, every time I would like to type, I can click on the box and position it where I'd like to, and I can type the words. Now, if that seems like kind of a lot of work to be moving the box around, you can just use a different format. If you use the freehand tool, you can click on that squiggly line and actually use your mouse to write the words. This is going to be a great piece for students when we talk about what students can actually do with this. You can save this document or you can print it out if you'd like. But if you want students to work at the same pace and you want to use this as guided practice, projecting it up on the screen would be a great way to keep everyone together. Now let's take a look at other ways besides just in the foundational skills. In the reading and responding section, you can also use this for several ways. Number one, don't forget, you've also got Show Me Professional Development videos. Don't forget to watch those because sometimes those will give you some good tips as well. Also, I want you to think about the second read. After we've read the students using the comprehension strategies, we want to go back and reread portions of the text and dig in a little deeper. How you can use your technology is to use, again, as like a guided practice. For example, if we open up this thumbnail, you can always click and use the graphic organizers for the whole classroom, and you can also use the student page textbook. Now, this would be a great way if we want to think about the I'm going to model, we're going to do it together, guided practice, and then we want students to find some on their own. This would be a great place to start. And if you click on your mouse, it will zoom the text, and the students will be able to see it from a variety of places. Again, you can use your smartboard technology then to circle, highlight, or box some of the text evidence that you are showing. During the writing portion of the lessons, There's also another piece that is great to use, and that's with the graphic organizers. Especially since we're doing a guided practice with students, we want to make sure that everyone knows exactly what we're doing. So when we take a look at our writing piece and we want to look at the guided practice, first we can show them as direct instruction how we're going to use and what we're going to do for our lesson. Again, mine is automatically zoomed in, so it pops up very large so everyone can see it. Then we can again use the skills practice page as guided practice where we can all fill in together, or the teacher can start it and students can complete it independently. So these would be very good ways to use blended technology in the classroom for your direct instruction. Now, let's take a look at what the students' version would be and some of the possibilities for them. Now, this is a student page that I logged in as Ed Christensen. Now, when the page pops up, we have today's view of the same days that I had in my teacher edition, but there's a variety of things for students can do they can do. One of the pieces that I'd like to point out is in blended learning, we want students to be able to kind of work at their own pace or make some decisions in what they're learning and reviewing. This is a perfect way for students to do this, either at a computer at school or at a device at home. Students can take a look at their sound spelling cards to review them. They can take a look at the practice pages. There's also a letter that goes home to the parents. They can use the student anthology. If they want, they can also take a look at other units. Maybe we're really interested in a particular topic and want to go back to a different story in a different unit. Students can make that decision by choosing the unit, the lesson, and the day. All right, let's take a look at some of the things, though, that teachers can assign students for them to work on, and then we'll go back to the teacher page and talk about how to do it. First of all, one of the new things that teachers and students can do is record readings of decodable readers. So this is one right here that the teacher has assigned. So if I want to open up Crow and Goat, I have instructions here. It says record yourself reading Crow and Goat. Listen to yourself, re-record if you'd like. Now it has been assigned to the student when they click Start. An option will open for them to record. All they do is simply press the play button. Now, that will always come to this screen where it says Adobe Flash Player Settings. They have to allow it in order to be able to record. Once they've done that, the record button will show up. You can tell that the voice is being monitored by the green bars. When students will hit the record button, it will record what they're actually reading. Crow and Goat. They can finish after they've read the whole book, and they can play it back and listen to themselves. They can also re-record it if they weren't satisfied with their first reading. Other options students can do is to read the book, where students can read it, and if they're unsure of a word, they can click on it and the computer will read it to them. They can also listen to the book. This is also a great idea for pre-teaching for some of your students that need more support. Before they are introduced to the book in class, assign it to them to listen. That way, when they're in class, they will be more apt to participate because they will be familiar with the content. All right, let's take a look at another assignment that is here. And this is the one that I really think is a great piece. And that's with using our long U card. I'm going to open up this assignment, and there are two resources here. It says listen to the long U card, complete the pages, write the words and sentences, save it, and submit. Now, students can open up the card and listen just by clicking, and then they can go to the skills practice page. When they open it opens up just like it did within the classroom. So this might take some instruction on how to work with this. If students are working, I think probably the easiest way for them to begin is using the scribble tool. So once we have that in place, they can use their mouse to write their name. Or if they're using a tablet, they can use their finger to write their name. Again, if you have students that need more support and you have tablets in your classroom, using a stylus is a great option as well. That way, everything is saved and used in the digital world instead of the pencil and paper. Just another opportunity to work with the technology. So again, once the students complete their page, and we'll pretend that I have completed my page, I can save that by pressing the Save button in the corner. So I'm going to save it, and that's going to save everything that I've done. Now, when I go back, I can click out of that page, and I see a plus button down here. When I hit that, that means it is attached for review. I can send it back to my teacher. So as I scroll down here, let's see if I can get this to scroll all the way. There we go. And I want to turn in my assignment. I just click Turn in my assignment, and it will go back to my teacher. Let's take a look at that teacher side with that. So here we have our teacher site again. And if I go to my assignment tracker from my hamburger menu, I can see that there are a variety of pieces that have been submitted and completed. So let's take a look at this first one. The first one that was assigned was a comprehension cause and effect practice page. When this was created and the resources attached, it was assigned to all the students that were in the class. One of those students has completed that piece for submission. If I click on the opening, I have to click on the word submitted. And then when I double click on it, it opens up. And there I can take a look at my students' work digitally. I don't have to take home that stack of papers. I can look at it digitally. Now, once that has been finished, you can always send comments back to those students so they can get some immediate feedback for that piece. It will also show you, when you go to your assignment tracker, it will show you the number of students that it has been submitted to, and also the ones that have been completed. Now, if you want to create assignment, you can go right over here to the Create Assignment button. And there you would label, give the assignment a name. If you want the student to send it back to the teacher for review, you would click Yes. If it is one that you want students to record themselves reading, you have to click on Audio Recorder, set the start date, due date, expiration date. Then you'll go down here to search for your resources. You can search for by category, and the resources will come up, or you can select a particular unit, lesson, and day, and the resources will be shown. Simply add that resource by clicking on the Add button, and you're almost set. The last thing you want to, or next to last thing you want to do, is assign it to the students. If you click on all students, it will automatically go to all the students in your class. If you'd like to customize it for students, for differentiation, you can actually customize which students you would like to complete this assignment. And when you're all finished, you hit Save, and that will save the assignment for you. So those, I think, are some ways that you can use technology in your direct teaching and also with your student learning. So before we go any further, are there any questions that anyone has?
Hi, Carol. We do have a couple questions that came in. Amy had a great question. She's a first grade teacher, and she wanted to know how you would suggest she prepare her students so they are ready to take the assessments online.
Oh, that's an excellent question, Amy. I think when starting out, when working with first grade students, you want to really start thinking about that model of, I'm going to do it, we're going to do it together, and then students can independently do it. So you want to make sure that you are modeling for your students. So open up an assessment and take it online in front of the student, showing them how to move their mouse. Then have some students come up and work with you. And then eventually maybe you do small groups with their own devices, eventually leading to the whole class.
Next question is from Sarah. She wanted to know if she can assign workbook pages for homework.
Absolutely. Remember when I went to the assignment tracker, you can create an assignment with the skills practice pages to send for students to complete at home, and they can send them back to you.
And our last question is from Mark, and he asked if his students can access the decodables at home on any device.
Absolutely, Jeff. You can, or Mark, you can actually assign them the books, or they can open it up themselves using a computer laptop or a tablet or a phone.
That's all the questions we have for today. We want to thank you for attending the webinar, and thank you, Carol, for your presentation. We will be sending a follow-up email with a link to the recording. Thank you, and have a great day.